Magazine Dreams. I'm going to go first on this one. Okay. So I went to the theater for my double feature on Friday night, and it was Locked and Magazine Dreams. And I posted on social media that my double feature is a movie I've never heard of and a movie I've been waiting over 2 years to see. And that's what I had. I had Locked, which I'd never heard of before, and then Magazine Dreams, which first debuted at Sundance in 2023. And we finally get the release of it. And this is the Bodybuilder Jonathan Majors movie. The reason we haven't seen it in over 2 years is because it's a Jonathan Majors movie. And before it came out, he had his scandal and had his cancellation happen. But now we actually get to see this movie that was ready to go. It was supposed to be his big Oscar push in 2023. Instead, it and he were completely forgotten about. So let's talk about it. This is written and directed by Elijah Bynum. It was his second movie that he's done. His first one was
movie with Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, Hot Summer Nights with Timothy Chalamet and Micah Monroe, right? Isn't that what it was? Yeah. Which is, I mean, it is interesting. I would really be curious to watch that one. Thomas Jane is in that too. Bill Fichtner in there too. Always good to see Bill Fichtner pop up. So in this, Jonathan Majors plays Killian Maddox, an aspiring bodybuilder who is kind of obsessive over this whole idea of becoming a bodybuilder and becoming a and being someone who's big enough to be on the cover of a magazine, hence Magazine Dreams. And he has some interesting quirks in his personality, some of them brought about by the steroids he's taking. And you kind of watch everything slowly fall apart at the same time. There's the DNA of a lot of really good movies in this. There's definitely some Wrestler in this. There is some Requiem for a Dream. There's some Love Lies Bleeding, some Whiplash. You've got a little bit of definitely some Taxi Driver pops up in there too. And at the heart of all of it is Jonathan Majors. And this is a tour de force performance that he gives. Everything around it. I mean, like I said, it borrows from all these different movies. And I don't know if all of it necessarily works, but what he's bringing to the screen with around it does. You have a few supporting performances. I was trying to recognize, the only face I actually recognize is Taylor Page, who I think just kind of walked off the set of Zola and filmed her scenes in this, her one scene in this, because she's playing the exact same character. I'm giving this 3 stars basically because of the strength of Jonathan Majors' performance. I think he gives this incredible, like I said, tour de force performance. However, at the same time, you have to see it a little differently now, and you view it a little differently, thinking that while he was like, I could totally understand how someone who is so dedicated to his craft like he is, and so method and gets into everything while he's playing this roided out bodybuilder, lashes out in his personal life the same way he lashes out in his role. Like you can see the connection there, and it's impossible to not look at that connection, as he was arrested for domestic violence right around when this movie was about to be released, for stuff that was probably done while this movie was being filmed. At the same time, it's undeniable to talk about the brilliance of what he did in this. And it's a very melancholy movie, but I think he really brings it home. So I'm giving it 3 stars. And man, I'll be here for the Jonathan Majors redemption arc whenever he's allowed to have it, because he is so much fun to watch on screen. So much fun whenever he pops up. So that's my thoughts on Magazine Dreams. Zach, where are you at with this one?
Well, I mean, it's always the eternal debate about do you separate the art from the artist, and I think it's certainly a case by case basis, and I guess maybe it's hard to differentiate between his real life physical assaults, accusations, and charges versus this character who is I guess, ostensibly violent character, although if you really look at the movie, he doesn't really ever assault anybody. He's the victim of an assault at one point, and there are times in which he yells at people and assaults himself, but he's actually someone who is trying to prevent causing violence to other people, which I think is sort of an interesting element to the movie. You know, a lot of cinematic comparisons. I agree with what you said. I mean, this is Taxi Driver, and there's certainly some King of Comedy in this movie too. The movie I also thought about a little bit, and Todd will appreciate this, is Thunder Road. You know, like Jim Cummings in that movie, you just kind of felt like there was some sort of self-destruction that was bound to happen with this character who, you know, has this very hard surface. On the surface, he's this, you know, bodybuilder with an incredible physique, incredible sort of confidence in front of the mirror and in front of cameras and in front of lights. But when you strip it all away, he's someone who is plagued by insecurity, and maybe that insecurity is rooted in some sort, being on some sort of autism spectrum, maybe, but also trauma from his life. And I actually like that the movie kind of references some of that trauma without going like too much. There's no like real flashback sequence in the movie. I kind of like that. Jonathan Majors is amazing in this movie, and I think a lot of people will point to the physical transformation that he goes through. But what I like even more are the scenes where he actually has his clothes on, and again, he just looks so timid and unsure of himself, how to communicate with people, particularly the woman in the grocery store, played in the movie by Haley Bennett, and they go on a very awkward date that is probably the funniest scene in the movie too. When he orders his food, I was laughing. I mean, that was in a movie that really wasn't funny at all. His ordering food is pretty impressive. The movie definitely seems to suggest that it's going in some sort of Travis Bickle direction. I don't know if I totally believe where it went, but I understand the sort of narrative trajectory that the movie was trying to go on. I think my favorite scene in the movie was a sequence that takes place in a diner when Jonathan Majors confronts someone that he saw earlier in the movie. And that's, again, just a scene where the movie feels kind of out of control, but in a way that's really satisfying to watch as a viewer. You don't know what this character is going to do. He feels unhinged, and it's a great performance, and that scene has some dread to it. I think that this movie, the best thing I can say about it is you sort of dread where this character is going, in part because at least I found myself trying to understand what he was going through, maybe identifying with some of his feelings of alienation and dissatisfaction with himself. I think this is an extraordinary film. It's fascinating to think where it would have ranked or where it would have been received were it not for the scandal, where had it still been picked up by Searchlight and Disney and not resuscitated by Briarwood or wherever studio is putting this out, because I think Jonathan Majors would have gotten an Academy Award nomination. I can't speak to, you know, the assault that happened. We know that he was convicted, although it was a misdemeanor conviction. It was dropped a little bit. Doing a deep dive on that, I don't know. It's iffy. But I think he's a formidable talent and a great actor. And this movie really got under my skin. And it's my favorite movie I've seen so far in 2024. Or 25. So I don't know what the future of this movie holds. I don't know if people will see it. I don't know if the scandal will draw people to it or draw people away from it. But the fact remains that this movie is a movie that should be seen. And I hope Jonathan Majors has a career that, you know, he can do stuff like this, because this is not a typical role that you would see for someone who could make millions of dollars off of what was supposed to be a sure thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I give this movie 3.5 stars, and I think it's a pretty exceptional movie.
Well, and 2023 was shaping up to be the year of Jonathan Majors. He had Creed 3. He had his King the Conqueror was starting to appear and be the thing for the MCU, and then this was going to be his vehicle into the Oscars, and now he, you know, that this just kind of fell out of nowhere to finally get a release. Yeah, but I'm glad we're able to watch it. Todd, what do you think?
Well, yeah, well, like with Jonathan Majors, it's like he was going to be at the absolute top. Like he was about to take over everything at that point. And so, like, for me, it's like when people get canceled, I appreciate them more after they get canceled, because like you don't know what you're missing until you actually don't have it anymore. If he never works again, it would be like James Dean dying. Like he was going to be the next like the king of Hollywood, and then like we may never see him do a new thing again. But anyway, this is a lot of a movie, but it is stripped down, and Majors is an absolute monster. Like, he is so big, but he is also the most raw, gifted actor, at least since Miles Teller, I guess. But like, there's actually a lot of whiplash in this, and like you said, the wrestler, he's basically a Mickey Rourke type. And now that the Oscar issues like are happening, that furthers that comparison, I guess. But he's astonishing in this movie. His physique is insane, just like it was in his Pinot nominated role in Creed 3. But here he adds another layer of emotional depth to it too. It's probably a lot of Taxi Driver, but it's more empathetic and introspective than Taxi Driver. It's a lot more like Joker than it is like Taxi Driver. But his choice of music is fantastic. Like, blasting death metal before a dinner date is just beautiful. And yes, that first dinner date scene is excruciating. It's uncomfortable. It's kind of brilliant. And his order is sort of like Scott Calvin's order. The movie constantly is going places I wasn't expecting. It creates storylines, then it punts on them immediately, then goes somewhere else, somehow even more compelling. And I do like that it has the balls to take a step that most movies don't. Like, Scorsese tiptoes around like sexual repression a lot in his movies, but this like shows what it actually does to an unstable person, and I actually like that the movie explores that. It's tense, it's painful, it's unusual, it's kind of hypnotic, but the last act gets really messy. It throws in like a scene that's about race that's from a completely different movie. Came out of nowhere, and it goes nowhere, and then it forgets about it, and it tries to make a point about it, but it doesn't. That's the first spot where I was like, okay, this is an inexperienced filmmaker. I haven't seen his first movie, but this feels like a debut film, definitely like a Sundance movie. It's a weird movie. It's tough, it's sad and bizarre. I'm happy it got a wide release. I'm at 3 stars, but for a good chunk of it, I was higher than that. The third act just kind of like just took it down a bit, because I was like, man, it's really going for it, and that might be your Love Lies Bleeding comparison, but I couldn't quite get there after how it kind of took a dive at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree, although I think I'm higher on the movie than Todd is. I mean, I was at 4 stars for a lot of this movie because I thought as a character study, it was just exceptional. I mean, he's in every scene of this movie. You understand the pain that he's going through, and yet in a way, he's still really distant and removed. He's lying through his teeth about everything. I also thought a little bit about Punch Drunk Love. Like, this is a character that it's just painful to see him interact with just normal people. And the only thing, I actually don't know what scene you're referencing, Todd, but the scene that I didn't like involved, spoiler a little bit here, but hostage taking. I just thought that scene, it didn't feel like that was, it didn't feel realistic. It felt like that was like the Matt Damon, what movie is this in? Like, that felt out of character and out of place for the movie, but I didn't hate it. And the movie sort of had to go to some place like that. And I'm actually kind of pleased where the movie ended too. I think it was probably a difficult movie to end at some point. I probably could have watched another hour of the movie. I mean, it's hypnotic watching his performance in that role. So I think it's a really cool movie that I don't know how many people will see, but it's in part because of Jonathan Majors, but also the subject matter in general. But it's definitely worth checking out if you're a serious film goer.
I was talking about the scene in the diner. I don't know, I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
The diner scene. Well, I thought that was one of the best. I think I said I thought that was maybe the best scene in the movie, just because of how I didn't know where that scene was going at all, and it kind of felt really surprising to be placed there. But I thought that was a cool scene.
Now that it's gotten its theatrical release, I mean, I would love to think that he would have a shot at having some awards love in this, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's got one of the cooler movie names that I've heard. Killian Maddox, like, that is just a cool name. Like, if that were an alias, it would have been on our last Power Rankings list. Like, that's a good solid name, I think. Mm-hmm. But
I love the reference to Scott Calvin's food order. Do you think his bedroom has more or fewer posters than Dirk Diggler's bedroom?
He's got more posters.
I mean, he rips them down like
looks
Dirk's
like an FBI wall. Like, they got so many pictures on the wall.
That's fair. Yeah, this movie is out there. It's not in a lot of places, but you can find it. Currently, it has 791 reviews on IMDb. So not many people went out to see this one. I didn't see where it ended up at the box office. Did you guys? Did you have that up?
It finished with $700,000 in 800 screens. So it's in 16th place, tied with Mufasa. But I mean, that's not a ton of screens. So I mean, that's not terrible considering the movie until just recently had basically no like online buzz. It had no like trailers played until just like super recently, and people still don't really know about it, I'm sure. Tiny production.
This was a movie that was in the back, like anybody who knew the story. This movie was in the back of your mind for the last 2 years. Like, when are we actually going to get to see Magazine Dreams? It was there. Everyone knew it was there. It's like the Batgirl movie at Warner Brothers, right? Or
but on a smaller scale. This is more like would be more like if what was the Ridley Scott movie got completely punted, like like before they recast it with Christopher Plummer. Like that's sort of
all the money in the world,
and like nobody was gonna be like begging to see that. But I mean, some people had seen it before the whole thing went down, I guess. It was a tough situation. I'm glad that we actually got to see it, and actually with a wide release. That's more than I thought we were going to get.
Well, and what's fascinating too is like there's a bit of Joaquin Phoenix and Joker, and maybe even a little bit of like Brandon Fraser and The Whale. Those are both Oscar-winning performances. I wonder I think this movie would have had a real Oscar chance had Searchlight been behind it. But maybe
we don't know. Like sometimes they don't care about that.
Maybe it's cooler this way because now people need to seek it out.
True. Yeah. It would have been an awards darling that everyone would have been talking about, and we would have gotten sick of it. And now it's the little movie that we can champion, I guess. It is thrice approved. I gave it 3 stars. Todd gave it 3 stars. Zach gave it 3.5 stars. Like we said, it's in a few theaters. If you can seek it out, it's worth the watch just to see this powerhouse performance. And hopefully it's not the last. I saw he does have one movie in pre-production. He's going to have to build back up from scratch. And I hope he gets a chance to. I think as much as Hollywood likes to cancel right now, they also love a great redemption arc, and I think he can have one. So